Hi guys, and welcome back to another book review. My name is Awo, and today I'll be reviewing The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien.
Can you explain the title?
So this title kind of has two meanings, and in a way it's what they physically carried, because this is more of a wartime book, so what they physically carried in their backpacks, but also what the soldiers carried mentally and psychologically.
What category would you put this book into?
This book is a historical wartime fiction type book.
And with that, what do you think the purpose of the book was?
I think Tim O'Brien's purpose was to show war as it actually is, and the book was written very matter of fact, and it's not saying this person was necessarily a hero or this person ruined everything. It's just telling the story as it is.
And what was something that you liked about the story?
I liked how it wasn't about one person, and it kind of wove in and out of each person's perspective, even though it is written like kind of not necessarily in the perspective of Tim O'Brien, but it's as if he is hearing all these stories and relaying them back to us.
And can you describe the setting of these stories for us?
This story is set mostly in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, but also a few little stories are set when the soldiers are back at home.
Can you describe one of the main characters in the story?
One of the main characters that was pretty different from the rest of the men, his name is Kiowa, and he is a Native American man, and he was described as the most mild of the group, and he always carried around a little pocket Bible with him wherever they went. And he always had a way with like packing the most meaning of his words into the least amount of words possible. So he didn't speak a ton, but when he did speak, it was like necessary for him to speak, and people would listen.
Can you describe one significant episode that happens in any of these stories?
So one significant episode is when the men are instructed to set up camp kind of and hide out in what they think is a field of mud. And so one of the local women is warning them, no, don't go in there. It's a very evil place. Don't go in there to set up camp. But that was their order, so they did that. And it smelled so bad that they said that the smell was something that you could never get rid of in your brain. And so it ended up being a pile of poop and slop and mud and all that, and it was basically just a whole field of, if you can think of a cornfield, that big area just filled with that. And they didn't know what it was and why it smelled so bad. And so when they started being bombed in that area, it was more of things were exploding everywhere, but you couldn't see anything. But the way that the bombs would bury down into that slop and just make it explode up made it so that you couldn't see anything and you didn't know really what was happening. And they lost one person in that kind of episode, but it was something that ended up really shaping those soldiers.
What techniques does the author use to tell the story?
The author kind of writes a book in a way that it weaves in and out of different people's perspectives. And so he'll be talking about how his friend is telling a story, and then eventually it'll kind of meld into his friend's perspective as if his friend is telling the story or is writing the book. And it makes it so that you can really feel what every character was feeling at the time, instead of him writing, oh, this person said this, but then you don't know what they're actually feeling or what's going on in their brains.
Did reading this change you or your views in any way?
I feel that reading this changed my views on war because oftentimes it's something that if you haven't been deployed, you're kind of disconnected from in a way. And so reading this book actually kind of brought that to the front and made you understand what it's really about and how it really is.
What would you say to persuade a friend to read or not to read this book?
I would persuade a friend to read this because it gives a really new perspective and it doesn't really glorify anything that happened or any story that's told. And it just tells you as it is, and it's very plain and very straightforward. And so it's not like other war stories that you would usually hear where someone is like the hero. This tells of a lot of tragedy and things that necessarily like didn't have any happy endings.
Sounds pretty deep.
Hmm.
Thanks.
Thank you.